She said I was holding her back, so I let go. Now she wants back in. But I've moved on. I'll never forget the way she said it. No anger. No tears. Just a calm, condescending smile and a sentence that cracked something inside me. You're holding me back. 18 years of marriage reduced to a self-help slogan she probably heard from that so-called life coach she met at the wellness retreat in Colorado. The same guy she insisted was just a spiritual mentor. The same one who posted shirtless yoga videos on mountaintops and talked about rising vibrations and letting go of toxic anchors. Apparently, I was the anchor. I didn't fight her. I didn't beg. Because deep down, I'd seen this coming. The late-night sound baths. The locked phone. The sudden obsession with finding herself. The distance wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. Like she was laying the groundwork to make me the villain in her next chapter of reinvention. So I let her go. I didn't cause a scene. Didn't call her out. I simply nodded and said, if that's what you want, I won't stand in your way. But I didn't roll over either. While she packed crystals and yoga mats, I packed up every document I could find. While she was off meditating in mountain cabins, I met with lawyers, accountants, and forensic analysts. I didn't need revenge. I needed clarity, protection, and the truth. And I got it. Photos, messages, transactions. Her mentor was more than a guide, he was a partner. Not just in her journey, but in hotel bookings and beach getaways she claimed were solo healing trips. She filed for divorce in the name of freedom. Claimed she needed space to grow. Said I was too stable, too traditional, and that her spirit needed someone more fluid. I gave her all the space she wanted. And used the time wisely. I restructured my business. Cut the fat. Hired new people. Invested in a mentorship program for young entrepreneurs. I spent my nights working late, not crying, building something bigger than I'd ever imagined. The house felt emptier, sure, but it was quieter. Clearer. Focused. Funny how pain clears your vision like that. Weeks turned into months. The divorce went through. She didn't get what she expected in the settlement because by the time she realized I wasn't just letting her go emotionally, but legally and financially, it was too late. I'd protected everything. She resurfaced in small ways. A text here. A random call. Once she even accidentally dropped off a box of my old shirts with a handwritten note that said, "Hope you're still you." I was. But better. What she didn't know was that someone else had entered my life. Quietly. Not flashy. No mantras or affirmations, just real conversations. Someone who knew what it meant to fight through things instead of running from them. Who didn't need to find herself because she already was herself. But I didn't flaunt it. I didn't need to. Because I was done proving anything. Then came the day of the launch, the new educational campus my company funded. Dozens of people. Press. Media. Local leaders. I was shaking hands, giving a short speech, smiling for photos. And then I saw her. Hair longer. Clothes trendier. Still trying to look effortless. She waited until the cameras were off to approach me, her eyes darting toward the woman standing by my side. She's beautiful, she said softly. I just nodded. She doesn't hold you back? She asked, almost laughing like she wanted me to say it wasn't real. I looked at her. The woman I once built a life with. The one who traded 18 years for enlightenment and a guy with a podcast. And I said, she doesn't need to push me forward either. We walk side by side. Then I walked away. After I walked away from her at the campus launch, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Everything I had to say had already been said in the silence between us. But even without turning around, I could feel her standing there. Frozen. Like she expected me to say more. To ask if she was okay. To offer some thread she could hold onto. But that thread had been cut a long time ago. And this time I wasn't going to be the one to tie it back together. I drove home that night with a strange feeling in my chest. Not pain. Not even satisfaction. Just peace. The kind of peace that comes after a long, messy storm finally passes and leaves behind clear skies. I had weathered that storm. Alone. And I had come out stronger than I ever thought I could be. In the weeks that followed, I focused on what mattered. My company had grown faster than anyone expected. The new campus had attracted attention from investors and local leaders. Young people from underserved areas were applying to our mentorship program in numbers we hadn't even dreamed of. And through it all, the woman beside me, let's call her C, had become more than just a quiet presence in my life. She was a partner in every sense of the word. Not because we agreed on everything. Not because we shared the same past. But because we respected each other's scars. She knew I'd been through hell. She didn't try to erase it or fix it. She just listened. Stayed. And showed up. Day after day. That meant more to me than any grand gesture or apology ever could. Meanwhile, my ex wasn't done. Not by a long shot. She started showing up more. At events. At public places she knew I'd be. Once, she even came to my office under the excuse of dropping off a document she forgot to return. But she didn't bring any document. Just herself. Standing in my doorway with that same tilted smile, like we were still playing some private game only she understood. She asked how I was. Commented on how I looked different. Said I had that glow she remembered from when we first met. I didn't bite. I stayed professional. Cold even. Not because I was angry, but because I had nothing left to give her. She wasn't my story anymore. She was just a footnote in a chapter I'd already finished writing. The turning point came 2 months later at a leadership panel I was invited to speak at. I walked into the auditorium to find my ex already there, sitting in the front row, smiling like she'd been invited personally. She clapped the loudest when I was introduced. Nodded along to everything I said. After the panel, she tried to pull me aside. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice softer than I'd heard in years. "It's been on my mind. A lot. Us." I looked at her for a long second. She still had the same eyes. The same way of trying to look vulnerable when she wanted something. But I'd learned the hard way that vulnerability without accountability is just manipulation. "There is no us," I said. "You made sure of that." Her face shifted. Just for a second. Like she wasn't used to hearing no anymore. Like she thought I'd always be there, waiting, ready to catch her the moment she stumbled. But I wasn't her safety net anymore. And I wasn't going to play that role again. After that, she got quieter. The texts stopped. The calls ended. No more random appearances. Maybe it finally sank in. Or maybe she found someone else to latch onto. It didn't matter. Because by then I was already gone emotionally, spiritually, completely. The man she had left behind no longer existed. And the man I had become had no interest in being part of her next awakening. C and I kept building. Not just in business, but in life. We took a trip together to a quiet coastal town, no paparazzi, no influencers, no posturing. Just quiet mornings, long walks, and conversations that actually meant something. She never once asked about my past. She didn't need to. She saw the man standing in front of her, not the one who had been abandoned. And for the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't just surviving, I was living. Sometimes I still think about the moment my ex said those words, "You're holding me back." At the time, they cut deep. But now, I realize she gave me the greatest gift she ever could. She forced me to let go. To rebuild. To find out who I was without her. And in doing so, she freed me. Not in the way she intended, but in the way I needed. And that's the thing about letting go. Sometimes it's not about losing someone. It's about finding yourself again. The thing about rebuilding your life is that most people only see the end result, the polished version, the quiet confidence, the success. They don't see the nights you spent staring at the ceiling, wondering if you made the right choice. They don't see the silence after the door closes or the weight of memories you're forced to carry alone. For a while after the divorce, I kept seeing shadows of my old life in the strangest places. A scarf she used to wear hanging in the back of a coffee shop. A playlist that shuffled into a song we once danced to in the kitchen. I didn't chase those ghosts. I let them pass. But they reminded me of how much had changed and how much I had grown. Work became my therapy. I poured myself into every project, every mentorship session, every late-night brainstorm. The more I invested in others, the more I felt myself coming back to life. I wasn't just rebuilding a business, I was redefining what success meant. It wasn't about the money anymore, or even the recognition. It was about impact. Legacy. Doing something that outlasted the pain. C stood by me through it all, not asking for attention, not demanding answers. She simply showed up. Again and again. That kind of presence, quiet, steady, unshakable, is rare. And when you've spent years being made to feel like a burden, like you were holding someone back from their potential, that kind of steady love feels like a revolution. She had her own story, her own struggles. We never compared wounds. We just listened, supported, and moved forward. I didn't need her to fix me, and she didn't expect me to fix her. We were two people who had both known heartbreak but chose to build something real from the ashes. I never planned to fall in love again. I thought I was done. I thought the damage was permanent. But love has a way of finding you when you're finally honest with yourself. And when it does, it doesn't feel like fireworks or drama, it feels like coming home. One evening, we were hosting a small charity dinner for the education fund we'd started. It wasn't a flashy event. Just a few close supporters, mentors, and students. As I stood in front of the room giving a short speech, I noticed her again, my ex. She had walked in quietly, no grand entrance, no dramatic pause. Just a seat in the back, observing. She watched me speak about growth, second chances, and the power of resilience. I saw her eyes flicker when I mentioned how much my new partner had contributed, not just financially, but emotionally, spiritually. There was a sadness in her expression, like she finally understood something she had been too proud to admit before. After the dinner, she approached me again. This time she didn't smile. No flirty remarks. No false bravado. Just a simple, "You look happy." I nodded. "I am." She hesitated, then said, "I didn't realize how much I was taking for granted until it was gone." It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest she had come to one. I didn't respond right away. What was there to say? That I forgave her? I had long ago. Not for her sake, but for mine. Holding on to anger would have meant dragging her into my future, and I had no interest in that. She looked like she wanted to say more, but I gently put a hand on her shoulder and said, "I hope you find what you're looking for." That was it. No promises. No rekindled hope. Just closure. A week later, she sent me an email. A long one. No manipulation, no blame. Just reflections. She wrote about the pressure she had felt to be someone she wasn't, the way that influencer lifestyle gave her temporary validation but no real peace. She admitted that her mentor had moved on to someone else a few months after their relationship began. She said she had been living alone, trying to make sense of the choices she'd made. She ended the message with, "You deserved better. I just wasn't ready to be that for you." I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I was tempted. Not because I wanted her back, but because for the first time I believed her. I believed she finally saw the truth not just about me, but about herself. And that mattered. Not enough to change anything, but enough to settle whatever fragments of doubt might have been left. Life didn't stop moving. C and I continued to grow individually and together. We traveled, built new wings of the foundation, mentored dozens of young people. And slowly, the past became just that, something behind me. Not a weight, but a story. A story with an ending I never expected but wouldn't change for anything. I used to think loss was the worst thing that could happen. But sometimes loss clears the space for something far better than what you were holding on to. You just have to be brave enough to let go. The invitation arrived without warning, a formal envelope, thick paper, clean font. At first, I thought it was for a conference or a networking event. But when I opened it, I saw the name of the event, the grand opening of the new community learning campus we had spent over a year building. Except this time I wasn't just a guest or a speaker. I was the host. This was the culmination of months of work, thousands of hours, countless setbacks, and small victories. And now the building was finally ready to open its doors. Students would walk these halls. Young minds would be shaped here. People would have a chance at something better because we believed in giving back. It wasn't just a campus. It was a symbol of healing, of growth, of the kind of future you build when you stop looking backward. The day of the opening was bright and clear, like the universe itself had decided to mark the occasion. Local officials arrived. News crews set up outside. Former students, now professionals, came back to show their gratitude. As I walked the grounds, shaking hands and taking in the moment, I felt an overwhelming wave of something I hadn't felt in a long time: fulfillment. Not the shallow buzz of applause or the temporary high of success, but real, bone-deep satisfaction. This was the life I had rebuilt. Not in defiance of the past, but in honor of the man I had fought to become. And then I saw her. She wasn't dressed in flashy clothes this time. No bright colors or flowing scarves. Just a simple outfit, hair pulled back, standing near the edge of the crowd. She didn't try to approach right away. She just stood there, watching, like someone observing a life they used to recognize but could no longer touch. I knew she'd come. Some part of me had expected it. Maybe she wanted to see if I would fail. Maybe she just wanted to see what I'd become. Either way, her presence didn't shake me. It didn't stir up the ache it once might have. It only confirmed what I already knew: this chapter was truly closed. After the ribbon was cut and the cameras had moved on, I walked over to the woman who had stood beside me through it all. She had tears in her eyes. Happy ones. She took my hand, whispered, "You did it." But I corrected her. We did it. And I meant it. Every moment of rebuilding, every hard decision, every late night, it had led here. Together. She kissed my cheek and went to greet some guests, leaving me alone just long enough for the past to try one last time. My ex approached with hesitant steps. "Can we talk?" she asked. Her voice was smaller now. Measured. Real. I nodded, only out of courtesy. I didn't expect all this," she said, gesturing toward the campus. "You've done something incredible." I thanked her. She hesitated again. "When I said you were holding me back, I didn't realize you were actually the one who held everything together." That hit harder than I expected. but not because I needed to hear it. Because I knew it was true. And finally, so did she. She looked towards C, then back at me. She seems solid, she said quietly. She is, I replied. She doesn't run when things get hard. That landed. Her face faltered. Do you ever think about us? She asked. I looked at her, not with anger, not with nostalgia, just clarity. I think about who we were, I said. And I'm grateful for the good. But I don't live there anymore. I've moved on. And you should too. She nodded slowly, eyes glassy. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say more, but I didn't give her the chance. I smiled politely, wished her well, and walked away. Not out of cruelty, but because I no longer owed her a front-row seat to a life she chose to leave. As the sun began to set behind the new building, I stood on the balcony and watched students exploring the halls. I thought about how far I'd come, not just in miles, but in mindset. I thought about all the times I doubted myself. All the nights I spent rebuilding brick by brick, both inside and out. And I realized something simple but powerful. She wanted to fly solo. Turns out, the real freedom was in being with someone who had your back. If you've ever been told you're not enough, that you're holding someone back, or that you're the reason they can't grow, remember this: sometimes people project their own fear onto you. Sometimes they run, not because you're wrong for them, but because they aren't ready for the kind of steady love you offer. And if you're going through it now, I hope this story shows you that there's life after heartbreak. There's strength in starting over. There's peace in letting go. And there's joy in finding someone who doesn't need you to be perfect, just real. If this story hit home for you, drop a comment and let me know what part spoke to you most. And don't forget to subscribe for more true stories like this one. There's always more to uncover and more to heal.